And Carly, you mentioned it before about your launch box. Can you just share where you currently distribute what you're growing and what have you learned through that distribution process?
Sure. So right now, at this moment, we are currently doing about 50 weekly subscriptions for local households. And we also do 2 local grocery stores and the hospital cafeteria, which at this time isn't open to the public, but is feeding anyone that works at the facility and also the residents of the hospital. So those are our customers at this time, but we did tap into a couple of businesses in our limited bear season, like the COVID edition of Churchill bear season that just happened. But through the 3 years, that's been a constantly evolving thing. Like one year we tried these restaurants, and then next year they didn't call, and we just sort of adjust. This is probably like, due to COVID, actually, this has probably been the most stable, like where I kind of know what's coming every week, because there hasn't been a lot of movement or shifting in for anyone. I mean, people aren't traveling, only certain restaurants were operating, at like a regular-ish capacity this year. So it was, but I'm happy to have the launch box specifically because that's Churchill people, and that means the most to me out of all of this. And on top of that, like, the nature of the system is that you're bound to harvesting a certain amount of plants every week. And at least if I have those guaranteed people, then I have an outlet for my produce, like regardless of if I make money on it or not, at least someone gets it in the end. So it's like a security feature for me to just be like, okay, these are just going to people, I know who likes what. And it's small town that way.
Can you explain a bit more for those who are not familiar? What is your launch box? Is that Rocket Greens? Can you tell us a little bit more about the setup, how that started? How did you know what to price? And how does that work?
Actually, you had asked what I'm growing. So if you were to ask Corey, he would say that I'm probably like a grocer user that's got the most intense amount of variety going at the same time. We do half shelves, which is now frowned upon practice, but we do it all the time in the grocer to make sure that we have all sorts of different things going at once. So the launch box basically is like a weekly subscription for locals. You sign up and pay in advance. You become a member of the CNSC, which is like an annual membership fee, very affordable, but it sort of goes with our mandate of being like a community-driven organization. And then for a very affordable price, you can have a standard launch box, which is 6 pieces of produce each week, or a mini launch box, which is 3 pieces of produce each week. And basically we kind of stick to a similar format each week, where the standards are getting like 1 or 2 types of lettuce, a spinach, a kale, and then like a category that we call other, which is where we've sort of shuffled like the Asian greens, like the bok choys and things like that, or collard greens, mustard greens, and a few different things. And then everyone also gets a herb each week. So our herb area has 2, 3, 4, like often as many as 6 or 7 kinds going at once. And then each week we are growing 5 or 6 varieties each week. And it usually is like a leaf lettuce, a butterhead lettuce, spinach, kale, like, and something else, or 2 other things. So.
And so someone's asking what's included in the launch box. And I know you said you have multiple different plans. Do you combine them with any other things? So when they sign up for a subscription, is it for 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line, or what are they getting when they get it?
Yeah, we bill month to month. And then what you get is every week is a fresh delivery of one of each of those things, like I just said. So if you were Stephanie, if you were a standard Launchbox subscriber, I would bring you your blue bag on Wednesday, and in there would be a butterhead lettuce, a leaf lettuce, spinach, kale, something else, and a herb. And then the following week, you bring me back your empty bag, and I give you a new full bag with all those things. But we rotate, so it wouldn't be the same butterhead lettuce each week or the same leaf lettuce each week. We kind of shuffle through, and your herb will be different each week as well. So trying to give everyone some variety, some different things to work with. But the beauty of the Rocket Greens and the fact that it's so fresh, well, essentially alive when we deliver it, is that they keep for a long time. So I'm not sure what all my subscribers are doing, but for me personally, like if I just got 1 bok choy, I can keep that in my fridge for up to almost 6 weeks. So I might save that one until another time when I get another one, and then I can do like a big stir fry or something. So there's an enormous fridge life for the produce, which I think allows people to be a little bit more flexible. You know, the food that we buy here in the grocery store is so old already. If like I bought broccoli 2 days ago and I pulled it out today and it's yellow already. So if you don't eat it right away, you end up throwing it out. So I like the fact that Rocket Greens allows me to save up stuff. Like I get the collard greens and then I save them until I get the Thai basil. And then I use those together because I have a thing I like to make or whatever. So, I mean, everyone's got their strategy, but I think most people who are subscribed have figured out how to store it well. So, you know, we all have our busy weeks and our off weeks when, you know, you're not ready to make a big salad or you're just not, you know, you're not into it. So at least it lives like it can last a little bit longer for those times when you're ready, and then you can do something big or more elaborate, like whatever works for your schedule. So
Yeah, and I know we're calling it by different names, launch box, subscription box, but the brand name you came up with is Rocket Greens. So can you tell us more about the backstory on that?
sure, yeah. So like we're a very casual, small team here at the Churchill Northern Studies Centre. You know, again, like in pre-COVID times, we would all ride together in a vehicle, and it's about a half an hour drive from town out to our site. So yeah, like often we talk about work things or hash through problems, or a lot of times we're just, you know, being silly. But yeah, right away, as soon as this project started, like I was like, oh, we need a name, we need to call it something. And I had kind of known from the beginning that I wanted to call the subscription service launch box. So we were just like doing a brainstorming session while we were driving, and like I can't take credit for the name. The name actually came from one of our postdoc. um, she was an employee and postdoc student working with us briefly. Her name is Hillary, and she was like, you guys know that the slang term for arugula is rocket? Like in most other places, except for I guess in North America, we don't call it that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, and the Churchill Northern Studies Center is located on the site of the former Churchill Research Rocket Range, which there's some pictures behind me of what it looked like when scientists were actively launching like thousands of rockets for Northern Lights research and, you know, potentially other things as well. So we're out here in a rocket launching site. We're surrounded by rocket launchers. Rocket is a slang term for arugula. So yeah, it kind of all came together like that. The logo was developed by a company in Winnipeg, and we fell in love with it immediately. And yeah, it works for us. We really like it a lot.
And I see some questions that are just about the details. Someone wants to know, how much do you charge monthly? And someone also wants to know what your turnover is like between subscribers on a month to month, or how many do you gain? How many do you lose? Is it fairly consistent? I know it's COVID times, but what are people paying monthly, and what are you seeing in terms of subscribers?
So a 6-piece box is $20 a week. So we bill monthly, but some months have 5 Wednesdays and some have 4. So it's either 100 or 80, like depending. And then we just do $10 for the mini. It's half the amount, like nothing complicated there. We kept it real simple, very affordable. It would be cheaper for them to buy it from me directly in the subscription than it would be for them to purchase it from the grocery store here. So that was a little bit of like tricky work on our part to sort of slip it in there like in a good price and then keep it easy. We want to keep it easy as well because we would have people paying me cash potentially at veggie pickup time. We do offer a credit card option for people who want to renew automatically, but yeah, we kept it real simple like that. So $20 or $10 a week, depending on which box you take. And to answer the question about turnover, we've had very little turnover, actually. Most people who leave are moving away, like they've come for work and then are leaving. And some of those people return seasonally and then will start up again. But when I look down my list of standard subscribers, there are like an enormous amount of names that have been there since the very first week. So that's really exciting to me. People who are into it, like I jokingly say that I've captured like all of the veggie eaters, like the hardcore veggie eaters in Churchill. It sounds a little nefarious. I haven't captured anybody, but I think the people who are into it have figured out that they're going to use that amount and they're happy with the amount, and then they're willing to pay that. So.
And Corey, a question for you. You've seen different distribution strategies work for different communities. what core elements are you seeing that are part of a successful strategy?
I think the number one factor is getting that community champion, someone like Carley who is tenacious and gets out into the community and gets in her truck and goes around and signs people up. I think ultimately that was core to Launchbox's success at the outset. Because, like Carley said, by the time the project started, we had done this in a kind of, it was all precipitous. It was, the rail line just flooded. We need to hit this. We need to go very, very quickly. So there wasn't much time for forethought on how we were going to get to do that. But despite that, we were still able to sign up a bunch of subscribers pretty much right out of the gate. I think within the first several months, right, Carley, of getting that launch box pretty much filled up. And I think that's factor number one. I think community buy-in is super important. But I think naturally when you have someone like Carley at the helm and being the face of the project, people want to support that. People want to be a part of that. And I think more and more consumers are wanting to buy local whenever they can. And especially, like Carley said, when the price at the store is more expensive than just buying it local, it's an easy kind of decision to make for people. But across all the distribution strategies, I mean, we look at wholesale to restaurants, like Carley said, retail stores, and CSAs. Generally, a large amount of volume does come from CSAs. When we look at our network, a lot of people tend to gravitate towards the CSA model. There's probably several reasons for that, not least of which is the fact that they can plan better. So Carley knows she has 50 some odd subscribers. She can plant the 200 plants she needs and sort of grow on sort of custom order, so to speak, so that she minimizes waste. So I think that predictability and the fact that people pay up front, they place their deposit, if you will, gives a little bit of a safety cushion or just a better ability to plan for growers. So we do tend to see that a lot for people. And yeah, it allows us to pass on savings straight to the consumer too, because there's no middle person.
You operate quite seasonally. So how do you adapt to the seasonality of the community? I know you talked about you have a launch box and month to month you see some changes, but how do you adapt to the broader seasonality, summer, winter, for other communities that are kind of more seasonal? How did you adapt and what would you share about that?
So like I touched on a little bit, so having the launch box as a steady outlet is super helpful because like I said, if one week you had a restaurant and they were taking 20 things from you and then the next week they're closed, which is very common here, at least I have somewhere for that produce to go. We have active food banks and things in town here, so if I'm 100% sure there's no way to actually market it, we can give it away. That's no problem. But yeah, I just mostly I'm really attached to my paper calendar. I'm sure that the most of the team at Grocer would make fun of me, although I know that Drew also likes paper calendars. So that's exciting because we work together a lot. But I just keep really close track of my calendar. I contact restaurant owners 6 or 8 weeks before they open. Like I keep that in my calendar. I don't wait for them to come to me. I make sure that who's going to be your cook this year? Can I talk to them directly? Do you guys think you're going to take the same stuff as last year? And I try to keep on top of those little seasonal things that I can keep track of. Our own organization, same thing. If we're getting bookings or we're fortunate enough to get bookings, I'll try and divert or be prepared for that. Although I admittedly kind of don't really know what I'm going to do now because we have so many launch boxes that I don't really have a lot for any other businesses aside from the 2 grocery stores, including our own cafeteria. So the grocer did sell us a educational cabinet, which is like a scaled down version of the grocer, which holds 90 plants. So I've tasked the interns with firing it up and we'll probably lean somewhat more heavily than we have in the past on the cabinet to provide us with those extra 30 units a week that maybe we can utilize. We're growing lettuce in the cabinet right now that we're going to donate to Christmas hampers for the local Christmas cheer. So it works. It's not quite as good as the unit itself, but it does grow things. So I think that just being flexible and rolling with it, and then like a little bit feisty and pushy when it comes to the seasonal businesses like I really try and force the herbs on them because that's an easy moneymaker. And a lot of professional chefs like really like that kind of stuff, and having access to fresh each week is important for them. So yeah, just like getting to know how your community operates, and then bugging those people basically is how I've done it. But yeah, it's good to establish good relationships and just sort of keep on top of the seasonality. We're not as the same as most places. A lot of places that are touristy are like on in the summer and off in the winter, whereas we're like on off like 3 different times of the year. So yeah, it's been tricky, but for the most part, like the businesses that do use Rocket Greens like to support us. In fact, one of the local restaurants posts a menu item that says like local Churchill basil included or whatever. So like they'll likely continue to be basil customers. They've reprinted their menus to include like that offering. And you know, I don't take it personally if they're not interested or the pricing isn't working for them. Like that's also fine. I understand that fresh food is heavily subsidized, and restaurants that purchase in bulk get really great pricing, and it's actually hard to compete with that using our own costs. So, you know, it is what it is. But like I've got my Launchbox community, and that to me is like my favorite part. And so it's easy to just take whatever surplus I've got and just dip it into those bags, because yeah, those people are here. I see them all the time. They're part of like of Churchill and as a whole. So yeah, that's how I made it work basically.
Mm-hmm. And someone's asking quite a detailed question about Health Canada regulations. Is that something that you had to do food safety wise, or extra regulatory concerns? This is a question for Carley, but Corey, feel free to jump in after. They're wondering if you had to meet certain regulations before being able to like sell the box.
Well, actually, I like Corey can maybe elaborate a little bit more on this, but we were directed that as long as we're not altering the food or preparing like any, like we're basically just picking a plant. We're not, you know, preparing any food. So we're just operating as small farmers, like in the same way that farmers markets and other people like that do. So we do have a commercial kitchen here on site, and when we do have a cook here, we have a number of our staff are trained in food handling, but it wasn't like a hard requirement.
Yeah, Carley's right. I would tell that person to reach out to the sales team within Growcer. We're familiar with the food safety requirements in different jurisdictions. You know, it depends on your circumstances and your local and regional health regulations, but for the most part, from a federal jurisdiction point of view in Canada, at least, the CFIA doesn't mandate a formal food safety program to be put in place, but we do follow, you know, generally accepted, basically good agricultural practices. So we try to follow industry best practice when we're training operators on, you know, how to just stay sanitary within a system, how to monitor their water health and so on, to make sure we're doing what we have to do. But there's no formal, call it, inspection requirement or anything like that, federally speaking. But again, speak to our team because they'll be able to advise based on your specific circumstances.